Living on fruits. Why the raw food diet is the best diet for your health. Stay there until the end to learn the medical science behind the raw food diet and a plant-based diet, a fruit-based diet. Why eating more fruits and vegetables is beneficial for your health. I'm really happy to announce that 3 of my 10 books are now published in English, available on Kindle and print on demand on Amazon. My main book, The Eden's Diet, The Guide to Raw Frugivorous, the original diet. This is the most updated and comprehensive science book about diets. What we have in terms of raw foods, every detail that you need to understand to thrive in a raw food diet, to have more longevity and better health. In my humble opinion, what everybody in the world should understand. The Hygienic Fasting Nature Surgery, my most sold book in Portuguese. I'm pretty sure this is the best book on fasting in the world, the most updated in terms of science and in terms of natural hygiene practice. All the books have numerical bibliographical references, so it's not what I'm saying, but actually I can prove it. I quote by numerical references the scientific articles, the name of the scientist, the name of the journal, the scientific journal, the page, the year, and Natural Delicacies, Cooking Without a Stove, one of my recipe books with a lot of delicious raw vegan recipes like pancakes, cheese, dulce de leche, crepe, cakes, and a lot of delicious recipes without sugar, without oil, without salt, without anything that would damage your health. You want to learn more, get better in a raw vegan diet, get better in a natural hygiene lifestyle, be more productive, longevous, and healthy, you must read them. Hi, I'm Dr. Corassa, clinical nutritionist from Brazil that have been living for almost 19 years on a raw food diet. I'm almost 2 decades now after having saved my life through a natural hygiene lifestyle. That means sunshine, sleep, exercise, diet, and a lot of other biological factors that have co-evolved with us through millennia. That is the primordial requisites of organic life and have been denied, forgotten, that have been undervalued by modern civilization, by modern humans. We don't think anymore that health is dependent on these 4 pillars. We think that health is something that just happens, and that is not true. So let's learn. After almost 20 years studying the science on why and how we should eat raw foods and what is the optimal diet for health and for longevity, I have summarized for you the best information out there to understand how health is produced by healthful living, and human beings are frugivore animals made to live primarily off fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. And I'm really happy to announce that I have released my main book in English, available on Amazon, print on demand, and Kindle. I have translated the book, more than 230 pages of scientific literature that and practical details on how to apply the raw food diet, curative diet, a healing diet on your daily life. Why you should eat raw foods, why raw foods are the best way, the anatomical, biological, biochemical, physiological evidences, and a lot of details. You have to read this book. It's going to improve your diet even though you're not dedicated to become a raw fooder. So I love quotes. You probably have seen in other videos, and check out this one before we start. The top prescription is for your arthritis, but it may cause a heart attack. The second prescription should prevent a heart attack, but it could damage your liver. The third should prevent liver trouble, but it may destroy your spleen. The fourth protects the spleen, but has been known to eat away the prostate. The fifth, and then he goes. That's allopathic medicine in its best. Trying to cure disease with chemical substances forgetting about the biological needs of the human organism. That means the same thing that Herbert Shelton used to say, it's impossible to make a drunk man sober while he continues to drink. If you try to heal a disease without stopping the things that are causing it day after day, are you going to actually cure it with chemical substances? In my humble opinion, that's why the world haven't found out a cure for anything. We're still looking for cures for cancer, heart disease, diabetes, instead of looking just biological needs that nature provides for every one of its childs, of every one of its living organs. From plants to fungi to animals, we all need air, sunshine, sleep, exercise, diet. For sure, plants don't need exercise. They are static, but still, they continue to need these biological needs that every other organism needs. Don't undervalue these simple biological necessities. They are the primordial requisites of life. So I love this quote before we start. It's not the food in your life, but the life in your food. Living food produces living bodies. How ironic it is that these living beings, which we sit in their shade, eat their fruits, pick their branches, water their roots, and which most of us report paying some attention to, are so misunderstood. We need to come as quickly as possible to a deep understanding and appreciation for trees and forests and the vital role they play, as they are the best allies in this uncertain future that is unfolding. Such a beautiful quote for what is happening right now in the planet. We're cutting down trees, cutting down forests, without understanding that they are responsible for our lives. Our lives depend on the plants. Our lives depends on the trees. If we cut down forests to produce soy and pasture for cattle to ruminate, and we eat beef as much as we are eating it, we are going to destroy the planet. So don't forget, the planet needs us to plant more fruit trees. It's the future. Animals have their network of neuron synapses, electrophysiological circuits, and memory, but plants have their network of chloroplasts connected by stromalus, PEP circuits transduced by bundle sheet cells and cellular light memory. That means plants have memory. Plants have a brain. Somewhat they have found ways for make evolution to happen. The fruit trees started to produce fruit, and within the fruit they have their own seed. So the fruit is quite tasty, edible, alluring to us. It still our senses. It drives us to eat it through taste, through colors, through smell. It allures us. But the seed is not edible. The seed is actually toxic. So the plant gives us something that values our life. It's the pleasure, it's the sugar that we crave, it's the vitamins, the minerals that we need. But at the same time, the plant gives us the seed. So we end up eating the seeds or throwing the seeds on the floor, and we end up planting more trees. We move the tree around because we like the fruit from the tree, so we get connected to them. It's such an amazing biological description of evolution, of intelligence, but we don't see the plant's brain. But still, there is a brain. Just not like animals, but there is one. So, xenohormesis, what that means is a term coined by David Sinclair, one of the most famous gerontologists, biologists of aging that we have on the planet from Harvard, and he coined the term hormesis. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger, suggesting that things like cold, heat, fasting, exercise, even phytonutrients induce hormesis on our bodies. It turns on the longevity genes. It makes stress on our bodies, but a physiological beneficial stress. That yes, cold makes us unpleasant, but at the same time, it's providing us physiological benefits through cold shock proteins. Yes, So at the same time, there is the concept of xenohormesis, that is a biological principle that explains how stressed plants through ambiental factors like biotic factors and abiotic factors. That means biotic living things like worms that attack the plant like its leaves or its trunk, or maybe abiotic factors like the weather, like a thunderstorm, or too much heat or too much cold, stress the plants. So the plant doesn't have legs to find a shelter. The plants are actually the shelter. They are stuck on the ground, so they must stood their ground and make their own defenses, their biological defenses through biochemical metabolites. So they produce these bioactive compounds that we call the lycopene from tomato, the beta-carotene from the carrots, or the resveratrol from the grapes. That is actually not just beneficial for the plants, but to the animals that consume them. So these xenohormetic compounds can increase longevity and performance in the organism by activating cellular responses of stress in these animals. That means when we eat the stressed plants, when the plant is not through, for example, a plant that has a lot of fungicides, pesticides thrown in it, it doesn't have to turn its own defenses. So the plant is not as stressed, so the plant doesn't produce as much phytochemicals. So when the nutritional properties from the fruits of that plant is not as nutritional. Can you understand? Xenohormesis. Xeno from the outside. Hormesis, what doesn't kill me, makes me stronger. So we benefit from eating stressed plants. So they get the hit, we get the benefits from them if we eat their final products, their fruits, their vegetables, their nuts and seeds, etc. So first part, we understand that plants are the perfect pharmacy on the planet. They produce remedy, they produce drugs that are actually beneficial for the whole body and doesn't have side effects, and they are free and tasty. It can't get better than that. So plants are intelligent. They're making benefits for them, for us, and for the planet. So now we look at the diet of early hominids. This research published on Science suggesting although the first tools of the Stone Age and bones marked with cuts can be found 2.6 million years ago, they're still ahead of the first hominoids for millions of years. So the Paleolithic diet that a lot of people talk, oh, they ate a lot of meat, they were meat eaters, they were heavy meat eaters. The fiber content from the Paleolithic diet was 104 grams. So what does that suggest? That the human diet have been really rich in fiber throughout millions of years of evolution. We have been eating a lot of fiber, but nowadays the DRI, the reference dietary intake, actually recommends from 20 grams of fiber to 38 grams of fiber, when our Paleolithic ancestors have been eating 100 plus more grams of fiber. That is like 5 times less the usual fiber that we would eat in nature. Is that normal? Is that beneficial? We are actually suggesting that a lot less nutrients would not interfere in our health. And I don't agree with that. The science doesn't agree with that. Eating as little as 20 grams of fiber shows that you are eating a little produce every day. That means you're eating probably a lot of junk food, a lot of animal protein, and a lot of refined plants. So we want whole foods. So that's why 100 grams of fiber is the normal for the human species. That means if we were eating animal protein, it was very scarce, very irregular, not as often as people used to think. Because my usual fiber intake in a frugivore diet, in a fruitarian diet for almost 20 years have been around 100 grams of fiber. The same as the Paleolithic. That means eating like 4 kilos of food per day. That is the norm. Check it out, this article as well. In a biochemical and physiological sense, man is not a particular modern animal. Instead of that, he shares many adaptive mechanisms that have been established for millions of years during the Pleistocene era in hominoids, who were predominantly herbivores. Becomes obvious that a human diet through the last 20,000 years have gone through a series of revolutions, changing from a diet based on vegetables for one more limited, more monotypical, based on some grains and legumes. The whole of dietetic fibers in the economy of pre-agricultural civilizations suggests that 90% of the time of human beings on the planet, their gastrointestinal system have been exposed to a diet based on plants. And check it out, this article from actually David Jenkins, the creator of the glycemic index, medical doctor, actually a plant-based medical doctor that has gone to Africa to study the diet of chimps and gorillas to understand better the human diet. Look at the research that he wrote and published, suggesting that a fruitarian diet would be the best to treat cardiovascular diseases. He wrote, for the greatest part of evolution of the hominoids, humans and primates, it looks like their diet was based on vegetables, rich in fiber, low in saturated fat, free of cholesterol, and rich in carbohydrates in a diluted form, rich in micronutrients and phytochemicals with a really low energetic density. That means fruits and vegetables. That's what he's suggesting, right? The gibbon, a kind of primate, have separated from our clade almost 20 million years ago. The orangutan, 15 million years ago. The last separation occurred around 5 to 7 million years ago from chimps and bonobos. They all continued their diet based on vegetables and fruits. The agricultural revolution of the Neolithic, the last ice age that happens 100,000 years ago, the Neolithic started 13 years ago. Agricultural revolution, when we learned that we can plant wheat grains and harvest them, and actually doesn't have to be nomads living on fruits and vegetables on top of the trees, but you can actually stand on the ground, plant seeds, and cook them so we have food year round. So starch, only 10,000 years ago, have become the basis of our diet and allow our species to multiply and to grow, and guaranteed us a sense of security and affluence. With this upgrade, it came diabetes, described first in the literatures by old Egyptians. That means diseases actually began when we began to change from our diet of fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, our primate diet, to a cooked food, starch-based animal protein diet. And look at this graphic. He shows he put people on a fruitarian diet, and then he put people on a Neolithic diet, that is a plant-based diet with a little bit of animal protein, and then he put people on a diet of the National Cholesterol Program from America. That means he tried 3 diets for a few weeks on this group. And the best diet that reduced more cholesterol and showed more improvements in biomarkers for cardiac health was the fruitarian diet, the simian diet as he called, the primate diet. That means every diet actually helped the cholesterol from these participants that had heart disease to go down, and the biological parameters, the biomarkers to improve. All the 3 diets have improved cholesterol, triglycerides, blood pressure, and a lot of other biomarkers. But the primate diet was the one that improved the biomarkers the better. And what you have to understand is heart disease is the #1 killer in the whole planet. So protecting from heart disease should be the norm. The simian diet protects more than any other diet. Why are we not suggesting, why not cardiologists are not suggesting that everybody eats a simian diet? He has proven We just need more studies to confirm him, but for sure, that is what the science is showing. People only look for medical doctors to treat diseases usually caused by nutritional deficiencies. Most diseases nowadays are a lack of fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, a good fats, good micronutrient intake, and other lifestyle changing behaviors. But people look for medical doctors for surgeries and for pills. So if you're looking for help for your health goals, I can be of assistance through nutritional consultations online or in private sessions. And also the 10 books that I published, 3 are already available on Amazon. There is online courses and Brazilian retreats here in my place around a lot of tropical fruit trees. You can learn more about the science of health and how you can improve your health by natural means. And just after, Dave Jenkins have published another paper, another research with the name Effect of a Very High Fiber Vegetable, Fruit and Nut Diet on Serum Lipids and Colonic Function. He suggests, he starts the research saying the consumption of grains are something really recently in our evolution, just from 8 to 10,000 years ago. If there's a minimal impact to our genome, to our DNA. The great primates, the big primates, have an intake of fiber 10 times more than what is recommended for humans in diets with the same amount of calories. And such intake is quite similar to our ancestors. That means primates and human beings a million of years ago had the fiber intake. So the amount of micronutrients, vitamins, phytonutrients, minerals, it's pretty much the same because they're talking fiber, but fiber is just a name they use for like vegetable consumption, plant consumption, right? He gathered a group and put them on a diet consuming 63 portions of fruits and vegetables per day. That would be around 2,500 calories. That is like a lot of vegetables, like 6 kilos of food per day, something around that. So what he suggests is, during the Miocene, 4 million years ago, it's a consensus that the diet of our ancestors was plant-based, rich in fiber and quite similar to what primates eat nowadays. The effect of a really high ingestion of fruits and vegetables on blood lipids, cholesterol, triglycerides, and laxative effects indicate that more studies should explore its higher consumption of fruits and vegetables. The data support an increase in these foods and the long-term effects on cardiovascular health and also in bowel health, in intestinal health. That means there's so much data, but so much data. We in the health field that research these things, that read scientific articles, there is so much support in the scientific literature for increasing the consumption of fruits and vegetables. Why? Because we're primates and nobody likes to be called a primate. Nobody likes to see that. Nobody can actually discern the obvious. We are anthropoid primates. We are evolved. We can be the smartest of the chimpanzees, although we are the third chimpanzee, as Jared Diamond used to say, and actually wrote a book calling us the third chimpanzee. You can search it on Google. It's a good read. It doesn't say everything about diet of what you should know. Although we are the smartest of primate, the most evolved primate, we are probably the dumbest because we're destroying the planet. Way worse than that. We cannot choose for ourselves the food that we should be eating. You know, people prefer junk food than bananas. It's like, I don't know, it's quite silly if you think about it, because we think that we are the smartest ones. But eating junk food instead of bananas and thinking we are right because our body blah, 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 always some excuse? Come on, you know, like you can do better than that, I'm pretty sure. That's why I highly recommend you to read The Diet of Eden, Guide to Raw Frugivores, the original diets. I'm pretty sure after you read the book, you don't have any way to ignore it, any way to say no to it. For sure, maybe you don't practice 100%, but there's always that thing in your mind like, I know what is right, I know what is right. After I read the information from Natural Hygiene, I couldn't deny it. And I see like in thousands and thousands and thousands of people in Brazil that they all go for the same way. After they read it, they're sold. There's no turning back. Your mind can turn back. Maybe your habits can, because we're social beings, but you see things in a different way. I can guarantee you it's a must read. So David Jenkins went further than that. He wrote a third paper, a third research. Actually, he went to Africa to study primates, gorillas and chimpanzees on the real daily life, really study them inside where they live, so you can learn more about our evolution and our nutritional needs. So he suggests in this new research, anatomically, the digestive tracts of great primates and human beings are pretty much the same. We believe that a comprehensive in these animals' diets provide insights of the diet consumed by our ancestors, the one that influenced the evolution of our genome. We studied gorillas in a possible way to comprehend the nutritional needs of human beings. Animals consume around 200 varieties of plants and 100 varieties of fruits. We suggest that humans have evolved in diets rich in fruits and vegetables, fibers, low in cholesterol, low in saturated fat. The genetic difference that these animals and human beings is less than 3%. It's actually 99% identical to chimpanzees and 9.85% of the gorilla, according to new research into our genomes comparing to them. All of these primates have diets based on leaves and fruits. Although the omnivorous behavior of chimpanzees, it's more closely related to Homo sapiens, to human beings, compared to other primates. Animal protein intake from these animals, consumption of protein, the consumption of animal foods from animals is still pretty low. 1.7% of their feces providing evidences of consumption of animal products. In terms of consumption of vegetables, the primates differ from human beings even more from the Western world. Ironically, in a time that all recommendations from all health fields point to raise the intake of fruits and vegetables, although all the data, all the World Health Organization, the ADA, the American Dietetics Association, the Canada Dietetics Association, all the associations for diet and nutrition and cancer and heart disease and diabetes, blah, 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 from the whole world suggest increase the consumption of fruits and vegetables. The public don't get it. Most of health professionals don't get it, and they continue to send you in the wrong path. It's quite unbelievable. It's quite unthinkable, because why they're saying something that is not true and is not in the science? Because people like it. Like John McDougall used to say, people love to hear good things about their bad habits. And that's why people sell these keto, paleo, carnivore, blah, blah, blah diets. Because people like to eat meat. It's easy, right? You just get the beef and throw in the pan, throw a little bit of salt in it or some butter or oil. You have beef, like fried beef, or cooked beef, steamed beef, charcoal beef, but it's always the same. You cook it and you salt it and you season it. You have the perfect diet. It's quite funny. Primates, us, human beings, need to eat fruits and vegetables, right? We need nutritionists. We need science to be taught that we should be eating bananas. Primates, they're so dumb, but they are born and they know that they have to climb the trees and eat bananas. But human beings, you have to teach them the basics. You have to teach them nature's way. I don't know, and we are still the most intelligent, something's wrong. 3 of my 10 books are now published in English, available on Kindle and print on demand on Amazon. My main book, The Eden's Diet, The Guide to Raw Frugivorism, the original diet. This is the most updated and comprehensive science book about diet. What we have in terms of raw foods, every detail that you need to understand to thrive in a raw food diet, to have more longevity and better health. In my humble opinion, what everybody in the world should understand. The Hygienic Fasting Nature Surgery, my most sold book in Portuguese. I'm pretty sure this is the best book on fasting in the world, the most updated in terms of science and in terms of natural hygiene practice. All the books have numerical bibliographical references, so it's not what I'm saying, but actually I can prove it. I quote by numerical references the scientific articles, the name of the scientist, the name of the journal, the scientific journal, the page, the year, and Natural Delicacies, Cooking Without a Stove, one of my recipe books with a lot of delicious raw vegan recipes like pancakes, cheese, dulce de leche, crepe, cakes, and a lot of delicious recipes without sugar, without oil, without salt, without anything that would damage your health. You want to learn more, get better in a raw vegan diet, get better in a natural hygiene lifestyle, be more productive, longevous, and healthy, you must read them. This research, published in American Journal of Primatology in 1993, said during 8 years, a total of 174 foods were registered by the chimpanzees. Vegetable foods, primarily fruits, predominate their diets. Insects were consumed and predation in some kind of mammals occur infrequently. Chimpanzees and gorillas obtain their foods arboreally on the top of the trees. When fruit becomes scarce, when fruit is not available, the diet of these species show great divergency. That's why we are omnivores, because for millions of years, for sure, we always prefer fruit, we always gave attention to fruit, but maybe sometimes there were not fruit around. You know, of course, sometimes there is low season, there's no fruits around the trees. So what do? You forage. There's even a term on primatology for that. There is the fallback foods. That means when primates don't manage to eat figs or things that they really love, they end up getting like tuber. They end up getting like a carrot or a lot of vegetables, or they even kill another animal. When they're hungry, they just don't go hungry, like they just find a way to eat. But it's not optimal. That's why they call fallback foods. So check it out, this research. It's like, you cannot get better than that. Worlds within worlds. Evolution of the vertebrate gut microbiota. So in this research, they analyzed the microbiota of several different species, and they classified the species according to the type of microbiota. So, for example, you can see in this graph, for example, Artiodactyls is like the herbivores, right? Sheep, cow, giraffe, pig, horse, rhinos, and type 1s, they're herbivores for gut fermenters. There's type 2s, type 3, and then type 4, and then type 5. So human beings go into this category of type 4, omnivores or frugivores. Why? They are also classified in the same group as the bonobos. The bonobos is the pygmy chimpanzee. That means we evolved not from the chimpanzee itself, but from the pygmy chimpanzee. He's a little bit smaller than the chimpanzee, but they're a lot more docile and have different social characteristics. They're called the hippie primates because everything that happens to them, they change sex and fruit and sex to pacify any argument that they have. So bonobos are quite impressive in that regard because they prefer sex than war, because chimps end up making a lot more wars than bonobos because they rape and they fight and they kill, and bonobos are like, let's eat fruit and have some fun. They don't kill the others, they don't rape women, and they have more a matriarchal society instead of a patriarchal. Woman rules the society instead of man. We can draw a lot of conclusions from that because we are actually way more genetically similar to bonobos than chimps. For sure, we separated from bonobos. The last separation in terms of genetics was from bonobos. And that's why we were probably way more similar with bonobos when we were living in nature, like in terms of behavior, social behavior, family behavior, and diet behavior. But look at this. Hominids analyze the diet of the bonobos. It's the one who includes more fruits, and its microbiota, it's more closely related to human beings. Therefore, based on the comparative measures of the microbiotas of human beings and primates, the human species is a frugivore, non-specialized race. So they're suggesting what? From all species, like chimps, gorillas, bonobos, orangutans, and other primate species, the microbiota from the bonobos, the most similar in composition to ours. Like from all other animals. So DNA is more similar, microbiota is more similar, behavior in nature would be more similar. There's a lot of things, right? But beside of that, what they're suggesting is a non-specialized frugivore species. It is a species that can eat seeds or meat, but the primary foods for these animals are fruits and vegetables. That's what they mean, a non-specialized frugivore race. So they still eat fruits and leaves. When things are scarce, they go for meat and nuts and seeds, right? So most closely related relatives that we have in nature are described as raw fooders. The primates are all raw fooders, right? Because modern lifestyle applies technology to transform these foods, preferable foods, through agriculture, transportation, and cooking, refining, fermenting. We can eat a lot of things, but without all these processes, we would be eating primarily fruits and vegetables. Leave the stove, leave the pan, leave the supermarket behind, and you will see that you will be eating or primarily fruits and vegetables, or you go hungry. There's no other way. So it's estimated 80% of the mammals are herbivores. In other words, raw vegan fooders. So check out this paper as well. The measures of the intestine of different species of primates don't support the assumption the human digestive tract is specialized for the consumption of meat, especially when we take into account allometric factors and its variations between folivores, frugivores, and carnivores. The human species dietetic status is of a non-specialized frugivore, having a diet flexible that can include meat and seeds. So you can see also the graph. The ambiguous term omnivore, it's used to describe the flexibility to or emphasize that meat is actually supplemented eventually with a frugivore diet. That means they eat primarily fruits and vegetables and they supplement a little bit of meat here and there. Although in the great species of primates, the big ones, especially the anthropoids, they use primarily vegetable matter to achieve protein needs. Chimps may occasionally eat small mammals, but they don't cover the protein necessity from this source, and women, even more the youngest, are rarely provided this one. So they're telling us so many nonsense and people believe because it's just easier, right? Take a look at this research. Primates are so similar to us that they were used as models in organ transplantation. They were taking organs out of primates a few decades ago to insert in human beings, but that was abolished because it was too cruel, too, unethical. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition had a paper from Lauren Corday, the creator of the Paleolithic diet, where he suggests the origins and evolution of the Western diet, health implications for the 21st century. So the change in the foods and the way of processing introduced in the Neolithic period, Industrial Revolution, fundamentally altered 7 crucial characteristics in the diet of the hominoids, in humans' diet. Glycemic load, the composition of the fatty acids, of the fats, omega-3, omega-6, omega-9s, the composition of the macronutrients, the proportions from carbs to protein to fats, the density of the micronutrients, the amount of micronutrients in the food, equilibrium, the acid-alkaline balance, the proportion of potassium to sodium, and also the fiber content. During millions of years, the environment that we lived and mold our evolution and biology provided specific necessities that are not being provided. And the time for 10,000 years to now is not sufficient to alter our physiology and our nutritional needs. So he shows that the usual diet is composed by 10% of calories coming from dairy products, 24% of cereal grains, almost 20% of refined sugars, almost 20% of vegetable oils, alcohol, like added salt as sodium chloride. It's like most of the foods that we eat are refined plants or refined animal products. So look at what he suggests. Even foods like milk, yogurts, ice cream, glycemic load are insulinotropic. That means release a lot of insulin, because people usually say that, if you want a low insulin, because high insulin can exacerbate cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, and a lot of other diseases, prevent the autophagy from happening, a recycling process that you do during fasting. So low glycemic foods can raise insulin, and raising insulin is not a good thing. Refined carbohydrates and a high amount of fat results in a vicious cycle of hyperglycemia, contributing to obesity, cardiovascular diseases, dyslipidemia, hypertension, and causing a lot of other diseases and symptoms. 1971, around February, a woman went to a hospital in Africa and said that she was living off fruit and vegetables for almost 12 years. And the doctors were quite impressed by her statement and did some blood work on her. She took biochemical exams, physical exams, flexibility, strength, everything was perfect. Even though after she was living for 12 years, primarily of fruits, she had a perfect health. So they got the Bantu tribe and they put some volunteers in a diet for extensive periods, in a diet consisting basically of fruits. So it was planned to have 2,400 calories, 50 grams of protein, 650 milligrams of calcium. So they planned a really good diet for them, right? Some participants consumed way more than they needed in terms of calories. There was improvement in physical performance, energy, resistance, stamina, and they could practice intense sports. There were more amount of defecation, of feces, and urination. The pH of the urine of all of them changed from acid to alkaline. The blood pressure were all in healthy parameters. The hypertensive becoming normal. That means they reduce their blood pressure to healthy parameters. So all of them lost weight. The ones that were really overweight lost more. The ones that were just a little bit lost less, but still, they always stopped in an ideal weight for the body. A few months afterward, they did another research showing the biochemical effects of a mainly fruit diet in men. After 24 weeks, in a diet of primarily fruits, they got the biochemical analysis of these people. There was a better glycemic control, insulinemia, better lipid profiles, cholesterol and triglycerides, and the proteins in the blood were normal and healthy. Even though they were eating 7.5% of their diet as protein, a low protein diet, there was no hypoproteinemia. There was no low protein in the blood. Although they consume only vegetable protein, the albumin blood serum levels even raised. They had more protein in the blood although eating only vegetable protein, right? Even in the frugivore woman that was already more than 10 years eating this diet, the protein was adequate. The protein inside her body was adequate. There was a reduction in cholesterol, triglycerides. Even in the woman that eat primarily fruit and she ate a lot of fat, probably from avocados, coconuts, still she was having perfect blood work, perfect lipid profiles in the blood. They had perfect insulinemia, glycemia. They were pretty well adapted. They got fast adapted to the diet and they were feeling really well to the diet. They even quote Scrimshaw, another research, suggesting that we need 30 grams of protein per day and that's more than enough for us. Because even the young with a high physical activity, paying attention to ingest as many calories as it needs, so the protein are not used for calorigenic needs and the protein coming from good qualities. What they're suggesting is when you don't eat enough calories for your day, for example, you need 2,000 calories and you eat just 1,500 calories, the protein that you ingest is going to be redirected through gluconeogenesis to becoming carbohydrates to run your body. So if you eat enough calories, you're getting more protein and the protein will not be redirected to become carbohydrates. Glucose, a new one, genesis, generation, from Latin words, the formation of new carbohydrates. So the best data that we have on fruit consumption is the global burden of disease. This study over here shows that inadequate fruit consumption is the main cause of death in the world. This is a 2012 study. It's like more than 10 years ago, but still, they suggest that low consumption of fruit is the first cause of mortality in the planet, followed by higher consumption of salt. So all the things that you can do, eating junk food and blah, 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 the worst thing you can do is not consume fruit. This was actually sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates. It's a huge research with a huge funding. It shows that you should be eating more fruit to prevent disease and death. Check this out. Vegetarian and vegan diets provide protection against a lot of chronic diseases, including a lot of types of cancer. A possible mechanism is the effect of these diets in the intestinal bacteria and its metabolites, what we call short-chain fatty acids, the postbiotics. Possibly, the physiological benefits provided by this diet has to do with a great amount of lactobacillus. Another research published in 2015, the British Journal of Nutrition, showing that a high intake of fruits and vegetables can reduce the risk for different types of cancers and cardiovascular diseases, probably because the high intake of fibers, flavonoids, and proanthocyanidins. That means the colors of the fruits and vegetables. These compounds that give the colors also protect your health through being bioactive compounds. Bioactive because they get into the living organisms and they do a lot of things for us. So another research, there's hundreds, thousands of research showing the benefits of fruits and vegetables. And it's quite funny because I always talk a lot in my Instagram in Portuguese about health is produced by healthful living. And then comes another question like, but how can I produce health? But how can I reverse disease? How can I? It's like health is produced by healthful living. Fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds should be the primary intake of human beings. But people just don't get it. You talk like 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, but this is hard to go into the human brain. So epidemiological data indicate the association from a high consumption of fruits and vegetables to a low risk of chronic diseases. These effects are associated with vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, fiber, and other bioactive compounds. The phytochemicals, that means the plant's nutrients, have complementary mechanisms of action, including modulation of enzymes of detoxification, stimulation of the immune system. They are immunomodulators, as we call. They reduce the aggregation of platelets, cholesterol biosynthesis modulation, the metabolic hormones, the reduction of blood pressure, antioxidant, antibacterial, and antiviral effects. So there are just a few of the benefits of these phytochemicals, right? We still cannot grasp in terms of science how much they influence our health in each biological mechanism because there are millions, maybe billions. So we underappreciate the importance of 1 portion, 2 portions, 3 portions of fruits and vegetables more per day. So look at this research. It's quite funny because the name of it, pro-inflammatory, causing inflammation, effects of cook stove emissions on human bronchial epithelial cells. So a lot of people don't understand, but just cooking the food in your kitchen, it releases gases that produces inflammation. It's that simple, even cooking. So why not eat more raw foods? So exposing yourself to the emissions of these combustions of biomass, of these cooked food gases inside closed places is a global problem, causing approximately 1.5 million of deaths prematurely every year. So look at this research, raw versus cooked vegetables and cancer risk. So 9 of the 11 studies of vegetables cooked or raw showed significantly statistics to inverse correlation of cancer and raw vegetables, while only 4 showed with cooked vegetables. That means inversely correlated, that means they protect from cancer. So 9 studies show that the raw vegetables are better for you than cooked vegetables. So there's a lot more correlation with raw vegetables than in cooked vegetables protecting against cancer. Underestimate the power of raw foods to your health. Possible mechanisms that the raw vegetables make difference compared to cooked vegetables. Alteration in the availability of certain nutrients, destruction of digestive enzymes, alteration of the structure and digestibility of the food. Raw vegetables or cooked vegetables are inversely correlated with a lot of cancers. So raw or cooked, still eat your vegetables, but if you can, always prefer raw. So look at this, the phytonutrients, the color inside these fruits and vegetables are actually detoxifying chemicals. Yes, when you ingest heavy metals or POPs, persistent organic pollutants coming from your diet or the environment are inevitable. You cannot not ingest them nowadays because they're everywhere. In the food, in the air, in the products that we use in our bodies. Some people use in their bodies, some people use less, but still. Now scientists have shown that these phytochemicals in green tea, onions, garlic, coriander, curcumin, therapeutic effects against the effects of poisoning from these pollutants. So they act in our bodies, these pollutants act in our bodies in 2 ways. They cause oxidative stress, increase of free radicals in our bodies, and also they are pro-inflammatory, they cause inflammation. So these phytonutrients chelate these heavy metals and POPs. That means when you ingest a really good diet, a good amount of phytochemicals, although you can expose yourself to heavy metals, for example, there's a lot less damage caused by them because these phytochemicals can actually neutralize them and take them out of our bodies or neutralize their effects. They act like shields to our cells. They cause upregulations of anti-inflammatory pathways, in other words. So look at this research from Bruce Ames. The guy is a genius, a scientist, probably now around 100 years of age. I don't know if he's still alive. I saw a lecture of him a few years ago. He was still alive and kicking, really smart guy. He has hundreds. He's one of the most quoted scientists in the world, one of the scientists that have most published articles, I think. He has really good articles. So he suggests, it's debated that deficiency of micronutrients like antioxidants and folate is one of the main contributors to human cancers and degenerative diseases. Animals have a lot of defenses against toxins, what makes them really well equipped against small doses of practically every toxin, be synthetic or natural. Epidemiologists, scientists that study populations, have been accumulating evidences that the wrong diet may be the main cause of cardiovascular disease and cancer. The consumption of too little fruits and vegetables and a lot of fat is probably the main thing. So some micronutrients in these foods look to be really important in the prevention of diseases, like carotenoids, tocopherol, vitamin C, folic acid like folate, and many other vitamins and minerals. The research indicate that 91% of the American population don't consume enough portions of fruits and vegetables. Half of the population in the day of the research haven't consumed any fruit and vegetables whatsoever. It's absurd. I understand because I used to live in this absurd. I used to eat non-fruits and vegetables at all. And that's what got me sick with diabetes, back pains, intestinal issues, and a lot of other allergy, respiratory problems, and a lot of other issues since almost 20 years ago. And then I adopted a natural hygiene lifestyle. I found a raw food diet, a fruit-givore diet, and that was it. Almost 20 years without a sick day is the most pleasurable, best thing I could ever wish for God or the planet, or I cannot complain. Life is good. But look what Bruce Ames continued to say. The cooking of food is a great dietetic source of potent carcinogenic compounds in rats. Cooking produces around 2,000 milligrams per person each day, mostly of burned material that are not tested, many of which are carcinogenic to rats, such as aromatic polycyclic hydrocarbonates, amines, furfural, nitrosamines, nitroaromatics, and a lot of mutagenics. Roasted coffee, for example, we know of 826 volatile chemicals and hundreds of them that are not volatile. 22 of them are already tested chronically, and 17 of these are carcinogenic to rats. A simple cup of coffee contains at least 10 milligrams of carcinogenics and thousands of chemicals that are not yet tested. Therefore, a cup of coffee contains the equivalent in weight of carcinogenic synthetic pesticides for 1 year. That means in 1 cup of coffee, you consume more pesticides than in a year consuming real food, non-organic real food. So Bruce Ames, continuing in another research published on the Proceedings of National Academy of Science in 1993, low ingestion of fruits and vegetables double the risk of most cancers while increases considerably the risk for cardiovascular disease and retinopathies, eye diseases. And he suggests that although there's a lot of people thinking that supplements are ideal with a diet rich in fruits and vegetables, there's only evidence suggesting this, not proving that supplements are actually ideal or should be consumed. What is obvious is that fruits and vegetables contain micronutrients and antioxidants necessary that can prevent mutations. We are getting there into the end, but look at this research in the leukocytosis. A lot of people don't know what that is, but leukocytosis is an increase in the amount of leukocytes, the white blood cells of your body. The cells that goes up when you have an infection goes also up when you eat cooked food. So this was proven by Paul Kolchakov. This is really good to understand. He won a Nobel Prize for this. If you want to know more, I suggest you to watch the lecture here in the channel about the Eden's diet, where I explain a little bit more about the concept, or to read the Eden's diet to see the scientific references. So a lot of people never heard about it, but there is the Maillard reaction end products. In 1912, a chemical called Louis Camille Maillard published an article describing the reactions between amino acids and sugar during heating that results in lack of color, the browning aspect of the food. The Maillard reaction starts when there's glycation of proteins causing what we call AGEs, advanced glycation end products. They are implicated in the pathogenesis, in the generation of diabetes, heart disease, renal diseases, and neurological diseases. So a person that eats a lot of cooked foods, a lot of industrialized foods, has a lot of advanced glycation end products in their blood. And the more amount of advanced glycation products in their blood, the more the incidence of diseases. And these advanced glycation end products is not just in the blood. It's in the brain of people with neurological diseases. It's in the cancer tissue in people with tumors. So it's everywhere in the body. They accumulate through aging. So it's a thing that nobody talks in the health field, but it should be one of the most spoken, talked, debated subjects, because nobody wants to understand that their cooked food is actually harming their health, reducing their lifespan and health span. Polyphenols, a great group of natural antioxidants, are one of the main explanations for the protective effects of fruits and vegetables. So they induce apoptosis, that is, cell-programmed death. The cell knows that it has to be killed, and the body kills its own cell for protecting itself. They remove free radicals from our bodies. They regulate the nitric oxide, raise and mobilize leukocytes. They inhibit the proliferation, the cellular proliferation and angiogenesis. That means they protect from cancer by making a better immune system and don't allow the tumor to grow and don't allow the tumor to form new blood supplies, new veins to provide blood to the tumor. And they also exhibit phytoestrogen activity. Phytoestrogens actually fight cancer. It's the estrogen, the female hormone from the plants. They have beneficial action in our bodies. So this research also published in a raw vegan state analyze immune markers and changes in quality of life, showing that people that that go to a raw vegan hospital, not a hospital, right, but like a health school, actually have a lot of benefits in terms of quality of life and immune markers. So they suggest cooking causes loss of nutrients, denature important enzymes like myrosinase in the cruciferous vegetables or the allinase in the garlic. So these convert certain nutrients to its anti-carcinogenic compounds. That means when you eat raw broccoli, the glucosinolates are converted by myrosinase, the enzyme in the broccoli, to a compound called ITC, isothiocyanates. The most famous one is sulforaphane that has anti-cancer activity. But when you cook the broccoli or when you freeze the broccoli, depending on how much you cook or how much you freeze, you end up killing this enzyme or inactivating it, destroying it, and then you lose a lot of the anti-cancer benefits. And they suggest cooking also causes mutagen compounds to form and pro-inflammatory. So look at this research published on the Proceedings of National Academy of Science, from the guy that actually wrote that catching a fire, we should cook our food, that was the main thing for the human brain evolution, blah, blah, blah. Cooking tends to cause weight gain in the animals raised on foods rich in starch. Meat could be a preferred food, but its search would require a lot of energetic investment with low chances of success. He's actually suggesting that meat was hard to get. Even more, our ancestors, without ways to cook it and salt it and season, without really sharp knives and tools to take out the bones and take out the blood, meat back then was not the bone that is today, that's for sure. And for sure, everybody that eats starch, even animals or human beings, cooked starch, they have a hard time maintaining their weight because we end up overeating starch when we try to eat it. So almost the last research that we're going through is the one from Luigi Fontana. Low bone mass in subjects on a long-term raw vegetarian diet. There's a video with Dr. Luigi Fontana, one of the most famous gerontologists on the planet. I really recommend you to watch it. It's here on the channel. But he showed in the research that raw vegans compared to omnivores have lower body mass index. That's a good thing to longevity. They have lower blood levels of C-reactive protein, that means less inflammation. They have lower levels of IGF-1. They have lower levels of leptin, the hunger hormone. That's probably because we're more sensitive to the hunger hormone, like insulin. It's good to have lower levels. So we have better levels of vitamin D and we have lower bone mass levels, although there's no evidence of suggesting harm because of that. So look at this. We have lower body fat percentage, we have higher percentage of lean body mass compared to omnivores. And look at this also. Raw vegans have better antioxidant profiles in their blood compared to omnivores, although they're not supplementing and their counterparts, the omnivores, are supplementing using supplements. And plants' stress hormones suppress the proliferation and induce apoptosis in human cancer cells. So the plant stress hormones, when we eat the plants, we eat their stress hormones. And that causes protection from cancer inside of us. It's like, can't get it better than that. So sodium salicylate can suppress the proliferation and cause apoptosis in certain cancers. Jasmonic acid can induce cell death in leukemia. So rats treated with phytohormones, with plant hormones, survive a lot more than rats without phytohormones. That means rats with tumors, right? Rats with cancer. And to finish it off, this research published in Cell by David Sinclair and his group, it shows that caloric restriction with diets high in protein didn't have beneficial effects in longevity. That means it's not just eat less to live longer, but restrict protein to live longer. The results indicate that longevity can be raised by animals fed ad libitum. That means the animal can eat as much as you want, but when you manipulate the ingestion of micronutrients to reduce the activation of mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin. When you reduce protein, you reduce the activity of this engine of growth, that is mTOR. It's like a protein inside of us that responds to protein and makes things grow. So the activation of mTOR is pro-aging, as they suggest in the research. And you can see by this graph that rats that had a high protein, low carbohydrate diet, they ate less, they had less body fat, but they had less metabolic health and they have less lifespan. The middle group, low protein, high carbohydrate, they ate more, they had more body fat, but they had more metabolic health and they had higher health span. And the low protein, high fat group, they ate more, they had a lot more body fat, they had less metabolic health, and they had less lifespan. So that means you want to live longer, rats, they already show the answer in rats because Okinawa and all the blue zones do the same thing. They eat a lot of carbohydrates, low protein, low fat, and they live the longest and the healthiest. So you don't need to go through, a lot of brain work or a lot of tries and errors and mistakes and tryings. You just can learn with the science. It's simple, it's obvious, it's proven. That's why I show the scientific articles to prove my point. It has been proven. It's not a debate anymore. So they have better cholesterol, triglycerides, better glycemic control, they have better longevity. Even more, diets high in protein and low in carbohydrate are connected, are correlated with higher incidence of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, etc. So this image is beautiful and show exactly what we should aim for. You need courage to be different and a lot of competence to make the difference. A lot of people looking sad from buildings to a really beautiful garden to somebody living in a house with a beautiful garden. That's exactly what I did. I left the city, I started planting my own food and knowing that people just reproduce what they see. So what do you want for you and for your health? You want the best or you want the more of what people have? People are sick, are dying, are eating junk, having terrible lives. So you want the best or you want the worst? You can choose it. You want to live longer and better or you live shorter and sick? Up to you. I choose to live a healthy life. Raw foods, exercise, sunshine, sleep early with having dinner early, fasting when I need, and I rest my case. The rest is story. You don't need to focus on anything else than healthful living. Healthful living brings it all to you. So what are the conclusions from this lecture is? Plants are a chemical laboratory with millions of years of evolution. We still don't comprehend them and we give too little importance to them, but while we eat them, we have the benefits. The study of nutrition nowadays is too reductionist. We need to look for holism. That is like obvious. We cannot look to one just single nutrient. We have to look to everything. We have to look to all the nutrient profile. We have to look to anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and there's a lot of science to support that. That's why I highly recommend you to understand everything that you need to know about nutrition on the Eden's diet. And maybe we don't have enough epidemiological research on raw fooders, but we have a lot of scientific data to suggest that we should be eating a lot more fruits and vegetables and only whole foods. And starch haven't been in humans' diet for millions of years. We're still primates. We shouldn't be focused on our diet on starch, and even more, refined starch. We should be focused on fresh fruits and vegetables. Did you like the lecture? Please, I invite you to listen to the other full lectures on fasting, the Eden's diet, and other topics. I also invite you to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button for notification, comment below, give it a thumbs up, and also share the video with everyone that needs to know this subject. And also, if you want my help as a clinical nutritionist, we have 3 books published already in English on Amazon, print on demand, and Kindle. We have 6 online courses, 7 books to still be published, retreats here in Brazil, January and July, and my consultation online or in private sessions. It is a blessing to be able to help you. Health is produced by Healthful Living. Don't forget, much frugal health to you and your family, and click these videos to know more.